Wikipedia describes imposter syndrome, also known as imposter phenomenon, or imposterism, as a psychological occurrence in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, accomplishments, and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud.
He's a phony!
And Healthline.com adds that this can persist despite your education, experience, and accomplishments. So why am I saying all this? Because nothing has made me connect with this more lately than when one of my guitar students came for a lesson and asked to learn some Polyphia. I've played guitar now for 20 years and I've been teaching for the last 6. I'm quite comfortable with my ability to identify strengths and weaknesses in my playing, and I'm confident that if I wanted to do something on the guitar, I could put my mind to it and achieve it. So how hard could it be? We chose the song Neurotica and we started learning it. And at the end of a 45-minute guitar lesson, we'd learned the first 15 to 20 seconds in 45 minutes. And that wasn't even getting it up to speed, that was just learning the notes that we needed to play. And after that lesson, I remember coming home and I definitely had some questions on my mind. I'm supposed to be the guitar teacher and I can't play the song that I'm teaching. So do I really deserve to be doing this? And is my student going to wonder why he's having guitar lessons from me when I can't play the thing that he wants to learn? The whole thing was a pretty humbling experience, but I was determined not to let it beat me. So when I got home, I grabbed my guitar and I practiced it. And after what felt like an eternity, this was as good as I could get it. Some might say that that's not that bad, but I was less than impressed. So why, after playing guitar for 20 years, am I having such a hard time with this? I might be out of line with this one, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that I'm speaking for quite a large majority of guitar players, seasoned guitar players, who might have attempted some of these songs and felt a similar way. Well, I noticed something really interesting in the initial guitar lesson I had with my student when we first went through the song, because at the end of the session, we both had it down at a similar level in terms of the notes that we were playing and also the speed. He's been playing the guitar for 4 years, so it almost seemed like my additional 16 years of experience on the instrument made little to no difference in my ability to learn the song versus his. And if I'm being completely honest, if anything, dare I say it, it almost seemed like he had an easier time learning it than I did. And after thinking about it for a little while, I think I figured out why that might be. In the same way that only within the last 100 years or so, we've practically gone from horse and carriage to cars, to planes, to literally landing on the moon, guitar has also evolved quite a bit. From Robert Johnson recording the Crossroad Blues on an acoustic guitar with a slide, to Buddy Holly, one of the first artists to use a Fender Stratocaster in the 1950s, to Eddie Van Halen, to Steve Vai, to John Petrucci, and now to the Tim Henson and Scott Lepages of the world, there's been quite a monumental shift in what you can do with the instrument. I reckon I've learned to play the guitar in what I consider to be a very traditional way. I started with chords, and then I learned a few songs, and then maybe went to power chords, maybe to scales, learning how to do a little bit of lead guitar playing, a little bit of improvising, and so on. And when I'm learning most songs these days, I can usually visualize how they were crafted, from the key, to the scales, to the chord progressions, etc. But learning to play Polyphia felt completely alien. Obviously the songs have keys and they use scales and things like that, but they're being used in such a new and modern way that my traditional view of the fretboard and the guitar that I've been crafting for the last 20 years is almost a hindrance. And as well as trying to visualize it, I'm also fighting with 20 years of muscle memory trying to learn something new. So this leads me back to what I was saying earlier about my student almost seeming to have an easier time learning it than I did. The main difference between us is that he doesn't have 20 years of muscle memory and he hasn't developed knowledge of the fretboard in the same way that I have. So when he's playing it, he's not trying to make sense of it. He's just playing the notes he's been told to play, and you know what? Getting some pretty good results. And when I think about it, there's no shortage these days of videos popping up on Instagram or YouTube of really young kids playing this sort of stuff. In the same way that when I started, I went straight to learning Metallica riffs and AC/DC, kids these days might be picking up a guitar and going straight to Polyphia. And if a kid is brought up in, let's say, France with French parents and French friends and everything like that, it's a pretty safe bet that kid's gonna get really good at speaking French, as opposed to me trying to learn a new language at the age of 33. And that's what Polyphia is to me. It's a new language. Or imagine an 80-year-old man having a conversation with a young child, both of them speaking English, but the child is using a lot of new modern slang words which weren't even invented when this old man was growing up. That would be a pretty confusing conversation. It's also worth mentioning that to me, this isn't a style of guitar playing that you can just bust out whenever the mood strikes. It's a complete dedication to nail all the nuance and the precision required. And in the same way that if a person went to the gym and builds a lot of muscle, it requires a lot of dedication and consistency to be able to maintain that once you've got it. If you don't use it, you lose it. And speaking for myself, that's something that I'm personally not in a position to do. I don't think part-time Polyphia exists. So this is something that's just been on my mind for a little while, and I'm definitely not saying that you can't play Polyphia. Of course you can. But you might find it a lot more challenging than anything that you've previously attempted. And this video is just my thoughts on why that might be. But if you're dedicated and you have the time and the patience, then it's definitely achievable. I'd love to get everybody's thoughts on this, so make sure you drop a comment below. So personally, I feel like Tim Henson and the guys in Polyphia are absolutely amazing, and they've done a lot for the instrument in a very short space of time. And I love seeing the faces of some of my younger students, especially when they see this for the first time, and they're just so impressed by what they're seeing. And it actually does inspire them to want to be able to play like that. I guess in the same way that I wanted to play Thunderstruck when I saw Angus Young play it when I first started, so that's obviously what I did. And if there is a new generation of kids and or guitar players in general learning this stuff now, then I can't even begin to imagine the innovation that this is going to lead to in the future. I guess we'll find out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.